Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Sunday night and I don't normally do flower harvesting or floristry on a Sunday night, but my friends at Number One Bruton are opening a new restaurant, Briar, at Number One Bruton. And so I'm doing some flowers for a photo shoot they're doing tomorrow. And they've asked me to do greenery only, which I have to say, which I love. You know who I love a bit of greenery. So I'm just heading up to the studio while everybody else has got back to schoolitis. I've got back to schoolitis. I'm heading up to the studio. I'm going to prep, cut, and then tomorrow morning I will be making arrangements. I'll film it and delivering to the new restaurant at Number One Bruton. So the first thing I've got to do is choose what I'm going to use as my vessels, and they have painted. So it was a very stark white environment when this place was OSIP. OSIP have moved now to what was an old pub here called the Bull at Hardway, which is now OSIP, and here we now have this restaurant that's going to be called Briar. And it's they've painted it earth tones. So there's a mustard wall, there's a terracotta wall, and there's a green wall. And so I'm thinking, I quite like my studio, mustard, terracotta and green. So I really like, and also if you're going to be doing very twiggy arrangements, you don't want weight at the bottom. You want the trees to sort of grow, branches elegantly to grow out of the containers. So you've got to give them elegant containers. So I very rarely use this because it weighs so much, but stoneware pot, height, not a lot of branches. I can have the interest coming up here, not very much coming from around here, so it'll be very elegant, but the narrow neck means I don't need too much stuff. Equally, I like a bit of galv, so I'm going to use this, and I've got tall jars in it, so each one has a narrow neck, so I don't have to have too much stuff in each one. And then we'll see for the third one, but I quite like this idea, so I might do these as a bonus. They're good with the terracotta colours, and they've just got vases inside them, so you get a basket. Sweet, delicate, little extra something. So come along, let's go cutting and see what we can find. And if you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. Please do subscribe, press the bell icon, and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks we give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. Links to coffee buying and club membership are in the blurb to all my clips. Right, on we go. First thing I'm going to do is give the vases a wash and a polish, because even if they go away clean every time, which they don't, particularly with things like this, which I use once a year, it's covered in dust, needs a wash. On we go. Right, 6:30 in the morning on Monday. I've got 3 hours to cut and make these 3 arrangements. And the first thing I'm going to do is nip up the road to my friend who has a hedge full of old man's beard, wild clematis, which is just in flower now. It's very beautiful and curly-whirly. So I'm going to get some of that while the coffee percolates. It is a dank and manky morning. There's a lowering, hovering smell of dead badger. Not really dead badger, but it's what this family calls it, a dead badger smell, when it smells kind of manky and danky. But when I get back, I've cut some crab apples. So here is my neighbour, the artist, Bridget Morton's hedge. Very important to ask if people mind if you cut their hedge. It belongs to them, it doesn't belong to you. But if you get permission, and Biddy's always been very generous with her old man's beard, if you get permission, you can come and cut from other people's hedges. But you must ask, because they may be wanting to use this for something themselves. And yes, there will be coffee, but I've left it cooking, not cooking, you know, mashing, whatever you call it, at home. I'll have coffee in a minute. So this restaurant is called Briar, and Briar means kind of briar rose or any thorny material coming out of the hedge. So I'm not going to go too thorny, but possibly some blackberries. But I'm also doing quite a hedgy look, so green and twiggy rather than flowery. But the crab apples look great, so I've cut some crab, not too much. These are not large kind of wow factor arrangements. These are dressing the scene. You've got to imagine the people sitting there having supper or lunch, and if they feel overwhelmed by the floristry, then they won't come. That's got to be just, you know, gentle side issue. So this World Angelica, I think, will be fantastic. Do be careful cutting umbellifer seed heads. I know these are Angelica. I don't know how I know, but it's something to do with the purplishness of the stem and the density of the seed head. Whereas I know also that this is hogweed, not giant hogweed, which is a certifiable plant, but still, if you get this sap from this, and I know this is dry, but if you get this on your skin, it'll cause blisters when it's fresh. So I'm not going to have it in my arrangements because there's an association there which people sort of feel. But I think the Angelica, very stylish. And look, do you remember the meadowsweet, which was so amazing? And the seed heads are fantastic, so we'll have some of those too. So the Angelica can just dry in the vase, but I like the little bit of green leaf. So I'm just giving them a tiny bit of water for today. So until recently, this space was occupied by Osip, Merlin Johnson's restaurant. He's now moved down the road to what was a fantastic pub called the Bull at Hardway, which is now very fancy pants and all painted white outside and in, very grand, where he's doing his fine dining experience. And so I think what they're looking for is a real change of feel with this place, and it's very much farm to table. And a warm and sort of less formal, maybe, I don't know. This is how I'm interpreting the terracotta and mustard coloured walls. And so I think crab apples will be also very welcoming in these lovely old Galv pots I found years ago and get used often. So, as is sometimes the way, my plans are changing as I make them, and I realise what I'm doing is I'm making edible arrangements. So crab apples, obviously, make nice jelly. The Angelica you can crystallise, obviously when it's fresher than this, and put in cakes and so on. When I was a child, we used to have crystallised Angelica in Guernsey cake. Not sure it's easy to get hold of these days, but one could. So what am I going to put in my little baskets that is edible? Well, let's have some mint. There, charming and edible. Now, because I've got time, I don't want to get to Bruton High Street too early. It's the first day back of school. It's going to be absolutely rammed. So, because I've got time and I've got all that old man's beard, and I've got some roses left over from last week, I'm going to make one more arrangement because I can. And I wish them well with their restaurant. Right, there's a little extra. They may not use it. They may not like it. It's not what they asked for. But what they might do, I bet, I wouldn't be surprised. When I see the pictures, I expect what they'll do is they'll snip out the roses and they'll be laid on the table or put in bud vases or glasses or something. But anyway, it's an extra thing and it's fun. So, time to deliver. 9 o'clock. Bruton High Street should be clear by now. Right, so I'm leaving them all in here with my normal flowers, ready for the hotel guests to finish their breakfasts and then the photo shoot to begin. Right, everything's been dropped off and I've now been at work for 3.5 hours on a Monday morning. It's 9:30. I'm going to go home and have some breakfast.